Let's face it, fish keeping is expensive. And a lot of expenses can really sneak up on you in this hobby and you don't even realize it. A lot of new fish keepers are surprised after they've been in the hobby for a little time and they look back at all the money they've spent and they're like, man, I got a fish tank because I thought it was going to be cheap. It's definitely not. All the little tiny things that we end up buying and accumulating through time definitely add up. So to help you hopefully not waste a bunch of money in this hobby, I reached out to my channel members a couple of weeks ago and I said, hey, tell me what you think are some of the biggest wastes of money in this hobby. And I got some good responses. If you'd like to be a part of this series and you want to add your 2 cents on some of these topics, click the join button down there next to the subscribe button. Consider becoming a member of the team. Okay, this list is going to be fun, so let's get right into it. Mike's Aquatics and Things is a very sweet and simple one. $400 canister filters. Okay, this is one that I agree with and I also disagree with. That's what's fun about these lists is I can come from a couple of different angles and we can have some fun discussing these things. $400 canister filters in a lot of people's aquariums are going to be a waste of money. Yes, I said it. However, for big tank keepers like myself, I've got a 360, a 240, 2 125s, and another 240 on the way. For big tank keepers like me, having those big canister filters definitely does make sense. But I've talked to a lot of people that have spent $400 on a canister filter that they put on their 75-gallon tank. You might be saying, wait, John, you did that. You put a FX6 on a 75-gallon tank. I did, but it's also because I had that tank or that filter sitting there, wasn't doing anything. So I might as well use it. I didn't buy it specifically for that. If I bought an FX6, and I'm not picking on FX6s, I love FX6s, I think it's a great filter, but when you talk about $400 filter, that's most likely what you're talking about. If I bought an FX6 for a 75-gallon tank with some goldfish and some white clouds in it, that would have been a huge waste of money because it's not necessary to have a filter that is made for an aquarium over 200 gallons on a 75-gallon tank. Bigger filtration doesn't always mean that your aquarium is going to be more healthy. So if you're somebody that your aquarium does not call for a big time filter like that and you go and drop $400 on it, you're absolutely wasting your money. So for that, I 100% agree with Mike, but it doesn't mean that they're bad filters. It just means you might not need them. Not you, Mike, but anybody. Okay, this one's kind of a long one, but bear with me here because it's a good one. Tiffany White says, it's easy to buy things you don't really need when you are a newer or less experienced fish keeper. My local fish store is good at pushing the filters and lights, etc. that they carry, but I've learned there's so many other brands available online. Some are better or even just less expensive. I used to buy all my lights, filters, and such at my local fish store many years ago, but now tend to just get fish and frozen food locally. I'm all for supporting the local fish store, and they've gotten tons of money from me. I've been researching canister filters, and the store tends to have very large or rather small in stock when what I need is really in the middle. Buying a good size for my application online will save me about $220 over what they push. Aside from basic water conditioner to remove chlorine, a lot of water additives are not necessary and may even do more harm than good. We're just going to focus on the first part. So I've been on the other side of this, so I do completely understand why things are the way they are at local fish stores. See, the problem is this stuff is expensive even for the stores to buy. There are some brands, which I will not say those brands specifically, but some brands are impossible to get and make any money on. It's just a fact of being in this business. What they charge through distributors is more than what you can buy it for off of Amazon. So it's really a shame, and I don't blame anyone for not buying large filters and stuff like that, particularly some brands, but it doesn't mean that they're bad products. It just means that there is very little profit margin in there. And I can understand people not wanting to spend $100 or in her case, $220 more to buy the filter from their local fish store. rather than ordering it online. We do want to support our local fish stores. Even though I am a small business myself, I still want to support mom and pop fish stores, but sometimes it's just not feasible to do that. As much as I want to support them, I can't spend $200 more for a filter than I could if I ordered it online. If you want to ask me to spend $1.99 more for a bottle of water conditioner, that's okay, but when we're talking big money like that, nobody's really going to want to do that. And it's unfortunate, but the local fish stores are in kind of a pinch because they have to make money too, and what they're being charged for these products is just absolutely outrageous. Again, some brands are worse than others, but this is why you're seeing a lot of local mom and pop fish stores pretty much go to exclusively fish and maybe fish foods and things like that. You're not seeing a lot of dry goods. At least around me, it's that way. You're not seeing a lot of equipment and dry goods and stuff like that because there just isn't money in it. And it sucks, but the internet, and I'm a part of it, has kind of ruined that for the local fish store. But most of the money is in fish anyway, so, you know, it's okay. But anyway, I could ramble on about this all day. Thank you, Tiffany. Brenda Schroeder says, smaller 5 and 10 gallon kit tanks. Somehow, during the last few years, I've ended up with 6. I used them to put the fish in when I moved while setting up the big tanks, but I could have just as easily used 5-gallon buckets with an air stone. So Brenda is definitely right here. You can save a whole lot of money by just using buckets. Some people think that's kind of like a little too ghetto for them to use buckets, but you would save a significant amount of money. However, I am somebody that definitely preaches that having extra tanks sitting around is never a bad thing. In fact, it's always a good thing to have because you never know what's going to happen. You never know you're going to have that fish get beat up, especially if you're a cichlid keeper like I am. The 240's right there in case you're wondering. That's why I keep pointing over there. But you never know what you're going to have, a surprise batch of fry or something like that. Or a fish comes down with a disease. You want to put them in there to medicate them rather than medicating your entire tank. Those tanks, 5 and 10 gallon tanks, are so versatile. You can do so many different things with them. It's never a bad thing to have them around. But I can definitely see it being a bad thing if you end up opening your eyes one day and you're like, hey, I have 6 of those. All right, let's drum up some controversy, shall we? Angelfish Haven says, for me, it was AquaClear hang-on bag filters. They are the only ones that rattle, and when the power goes out, they never restart themselves. Even my cheap little Tetra filters restart, but not the AquaClears. Yeah, that's really the 2 biggest complaints I have about the AquaClear too. The AquaClear is a great filter. When it's running, it does a really good job of filtering the water. It processes a lot of water, and I really do like that cage in the back that you can stack up all different kinds of media in there to make it perform even better. It's great when it's running, but yes, there is the problem with the AquaClears. When the power goes out, they do struggle to turn back on again, or even if you unplug it to do your maintenance and then you plug it back in and you forget, it might never restart again because it's not powerful enough to get the whole process started. So yeah, that is a problem. Everybody talks about it being a huge problem with AquaClears. It's not limited to AquaClears. There are other hang-on-the-backs that do that as well. Usually it's the filters that have the pump in the box outside of the aquarium. This is why I'm a believer in having the pump inside the aquarium. Some people hate that idea. I don't know why, but some people do. You know, there's different sides of the argument for these types of filters, but I prefer the ones that are inside the aquarium. The pump is submerged in the water. When the power clicks back on, it just sends that water right back to the box and gets things going again, where the one that's in the box has to pull the water back into the box, and some of them aren't powerful enough to do that. And that top rattling on the AquaClear is probably the #1 complaint about that filter. And people have their ways of resolving that, from putting a can of fish food on top of it to keep the top from rattling, or just taking it off completely. But that looks really bad, and you've got all that water exposed, and your cats will jump up there and drink out of it, or the water will evaporate faster because there's so much water exposed. Who knows? There's a lot of reasons not to do that. I'm not a fan of taking that lid off, but that's what some people do. But I will say, I agree with Angelfish Haven 100%, but when that filter's running, it's really good. So, yeah. Dolbeck Aquatic Design says, bottled bacteria when you already own a cycled tank. Who knows how long it's been sitting in the warehouse or in what conditions it was stored. Also, you don't know how long it stays active once you opened it. I was led to buy a first bottle when I started, and I've been running without them for a while, and nothing changed. Okay, this is another one that I agree with, and I also have some counter arguments for. I am a believer wholeheartedly in bottled bacteria. No, not just because I sell it on my website, but because I have had good success with these products. But I agree 100% with, once you open that bottle up, how long is it gonna last? How long is it still good for once it's been exposed to oxygen? Even though you're gonna put the cap back on it and seal it back up again, it's gotta reduce the life expectancy of that bottle. So yeah, I agree with that. But most of the time, you're gonna buy a bottle that is adequate for the aquarium that you're setting up, and you're going to use the whole bottle anyway within just a few days. So that's not a real whole issue. But where I agree 100% with Dolbeck Aqua Designs, I hope I'm saying that name right, is you don't absolutely have to have that. It is good if you're starting from scratch, but if you have multiple established aquariums, you can take things from these established aquariums, put them onto the new aquarium, which will bring that bacteria over, and that'll help get the cycle going. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, I don't know if it's a mistake as much as it is just a waste of time, because it doesn't hurt anything, but I hear it almost daily. People will say, I started a new tank and I cycled it immediately because I took the water from my established tank and I put that in there. That doesn't really hurt anything, but the amount of bacteria that is in the water is so minute, it's not really gonna do anything for you. So when I talk about transferring things from established tanks to the new one, I'm talking about things like filter media, substrate, decorations, a sponge filter, or any kind of sponge that's in that system is going to be great, because those are like cesspools for bacteria. I'm not necessarily talking about the water though, but yes, he's absolutely right, he or she. You don't have to go buy that bottled water. If you have all that beautiful bacteria, did I say bottled water? Bottled bacteria. If you have all of those tanks sitting around that are established, they are seeded, if you will, you can take stuff from there, put it in the new one, and it costs you nothing. Okay, this is the first of two very similar comments. So Joshua McGurk, I hope I'm saying your name right. I would say decorations and backgrounds could be expensive because your aquascape could always change. And what do you do with the old decorations? And then Laura Barron or Barone, I'm not sure how I say that. Gaudy decorations. I got them when I first started. They were cool for a moment, but then realized natural was the way to go. Now this is definitely a subjective thing because some people like things decorated a certain way and some people don't. Some people are kind of fish tank hoarders like I am that have plastic totes all over the house that are full of stuff that I'm probably never going to use again, but I don't like throwing things away. It all depends on you and your personal preferences. But it's hard to disagree with this because you are going to spend a lot of money on decorations. You're going to spend money on decorations that 6 months later you're going to look at it and say, I can't believe I spent money on that. Look at that thing. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But you never really know because your tastes are going to change all the time. I know mine do. I've got an aquarium sitting over there that's full of fake plants. I never thought I would ever stoop that low again, putting artificial plants in there, but I've realized the benefits of those, that it makes it so much easier and it's a lot less work. And the fish and the plants, they don't die, which I'm very, very good at killing plants. So I dug those out from a tote and I put them in the tank and here we go. I'm up and running again. And so I didn't like those for a long time, but now I love them. So you never know how your tastes are going to change. So you know what? Keep them around. And if you end up using them again, even if it's 3 years down the road, then you didn't waste any money. Okay, it seems like Furloughs Aquatics is showing up in every single episode, but we love Eric, so that's okay. Buying a new food for your fish in a large quantity and not even knowing if they like it and then being stuck with that food if they don't like it. Calling myself out here on this one. Yes, this is definitely something that every fish keeper on Earth has done. You buy food not knowing whether or not your fish will eat it. And I've said this a million times, the best fish food on the planet is the food that your fish will eat. If they don't eat it, it's no good to them. So yes, buying big bags of food and then giving them a try, and if the fish don't like them, you're stuck because it's not like you can return that food. That is a big money waster, and we've all been guilty of that. I know this might sound like common sense, but I'm just doing my job here, folks. The way around a scenario like that is to buy a small container. It's never a bad thing to have to go back to the fish store, is it? I mean, you always want to go back there just to look around. So while you're there, pick up a small container, whatever the smallest one is that they have, feed that to your fish. If they take to it right away and they love it, next time you go back, buy the big one. I know it sounds crazy, but as you go on and you're buying more and more and more food, in the end, in the long run, you will save money by doing it that way. But just getting that small one, see if they like it, and then give them more. This is another one from a frequent commenter on this series, Gil the Goldfish, trying to match the hatch, so to speak. For instance, you have cichlids that originate from Lake Malawi, but were born in tanks in the United States. So you research the pH of Lake Malawi, hardness, try to copy all the water parameters to the exact numbers, except your fish you got are used to regular aquarium water. And he goes on and on and on. This video is getting way too long, but he makes this point even more, and it's absolutely true. This is something that I had this light bulb moment. I don't even know how long ago it was, probably 20 years ago, where you have so many people that try to replicate what these fish would be exposed to in the wild, whether it be the Amazon or the lakes in Africa or Asia or whatever it is, and they try to replicate that, what they would see in nature. But the fact is, most of these fish, not all of them, but most of these fish are bred in normal water that is either from a well or from a tap and doesn't even resemble the water that they would have seen in the wild. And so what you're doing is taking them away from the water that they're used to while trying to give them the proper water parameters. And sometimes that can actually end up killing your fish. A great example of this kind of thing is discus from Germany. Stenker discus, which Discus Hans sells. He's a good friend of mine. Hans sells these fish that are discus that everybody looks at and says, oh, discus have to have soft water. You have to use RO water. It has to be a pH of 6 and super, super soft. But not with his discus. Why? Because they were bred in tap water in Germany. They're used to harder water, not hard like guppies want, but harder water that's at like a 7.6 pH. And you see that for discus and you're like, that makes no sense. That's not what the book says. Well, when you're talking about discus in the wild in the Amazon, yes, they would have that soft water. But these fish were bred and the fry were raised in 7.6 pH tap water in Germany. So that's what they're used to. So you put them in your aquarium and you chase the pH all over the place and you get it all the way down to 6. Guess what you're doing? You're killing that fish, or you're making their life very miserable. So I 150% agree with Gil the Goldfish here. Yes, consider the source from where your fish came. If you're buying wild caught fish, yeah, you need to replicate the water from where they came from. But look at it the other way. If you're buying fish from a farm, you need to replicate the water that they were bred in there, which in a lot of cases, and most in fact, doesn't even resemble the water that they're exposed to in the wild. Okay, this video is all about saving you money in this hobby, and Sarah Sieber, Tiffany Underwood, Joe Knows, Ruth Miller, Q Aquatics, and Pictish Aquatics all say disposable filter cartridges. Now, I'm not going to disagree with these people because I don't use a lot of those. And obviously they don't use a lot of disposable, replaceable filter cartridges. But I do have to put up a little bit of an argument, and it's really quite simple. I am a firm believer, I don't have data to show this, but I'm a firm believer in that about 90% of this hobby is casual aquarium keepers. They're not lunatics like you and I are, and the 6 people that put this comment up. We're all crazy. We're all sitting in our homes watching videos about aquariums. We have 20 aquariums in our house, I mean, we're all nuts. We're at a different level. We're at a level of crazy way above what I believe is the majority of people that have aquariums. Most of the people in this hobby are just people that have aquariums. They're not people that are crazy and insane like we are. And for those people, replaceable filter cartridges are the best. Why? They work. They're easy. It's easy to keep the aquarium clean and keep things healthy. We're getting that carbon in there, which I know some people hate, but it's a great way to easily maintain an aquarium. You don't have to put any thought into it. You don't have to measure anything. You just take that cartridge out, put a new one in. Yeah, it's super, super easy. And this is why those kind of things even exist, because the bulk of this hobby are people that are not crazy like us. They're people that just want it to be easy and they want it to look nice. And for them, replaceable filter cartridges are the best. But for people that have gone up a level of crazy like us, yeah, they are kind of a waste of money, because there's so many different ways that you can fix that problem. You can take that out and replace it with so many different things that is cheaper and, yes, more efficient. So I agree with them, but for the bulk of the people involved in this hobby, I disagree. I got to look out for those people too, because they're the bulk of this hobby. So there you go. Those are some great tips from our channel members about how you can not waste money in this hobby. And for most of us that are on a tight budget, it's a beautiful thing to be able to save $1 or $2 now and then, especially when we're talking about an expensive hobby like this. These lists are a lot of fun to do, having an absolute blast with them. I hope you are too. I know the videos are coming out a little bit longer, but I get going on these and I just can't stop because I have so much fun. So again, like I said in the beginning of this video, if you want to be a part of this, click that join button down there next to the subscribe button and go on our community page each week, or you'll get a notification from us that we've put up a new community post that says, hey, what are your ideas on this topic? And you can add your 2 cents. It's a lot of fun. So if you can't do that, I get it. But if you want to be a part of it, that's how we do it. So thank you so much for watching these. These are a lot of fun to do. And I look forward to talking to you next week.